Let's begin defining and reflecting on what winter means to us and let it come through while we decorate in our journals. Here I have a vintage book I got at a thrift store, and it has some beautiful seasonal illustrations. And I'm especially interested in the winter scenes, and I'm flipping through showing you some of them. But today, these are the ones I choose to use, the ones I was just circling. And here are some scrapbook papers that I have in some pretty neutral tones that I feel speak winter to me. And there was a really speedy glimpse of a few others that had a metallic, sort of glittery feel. And here's a few bits and bobs I have that I'm probably going to use to tie on the tops of my journaling tags. And I always love nature. Anytime I can use anything from nature. And there I was just showing you, I don't end up using those, but have you ever seen those adorable little round peg stamps? I got those on Etsy. And here I've got a little container of some little bulb pins that I'm going to use for the top of my journaling tag. And there's other grommets and little clips and things in there, little crystals, and it looks like a lot, but you just buy one package and dump it in the little section and it fills it right up and lasts quite a while. So here I had a piece of crocheted doily that I got in a vintage shop, and I decided I want to use it as my tuck spot for my journaling card. So I put Fabrifix glue on just the edges there and glue it down, make sure that my scrap piece of cardstock will fit and slide in and out before it's dry. We don't want any surprises. So now here's one of the ways I measure sometimes to cut out what I need. And I just take my substrate or the thing I'm going to glue it to, and I use that as a guide and place it down and make some pencil lines. Sometimes I just make notches on the corners. Other times, if you really want a straight line for cutting, you can go ahead and draw the line entirely, and then it ensures a straight edge if you're looking for one. And now I just reach for some scraps on my table because my imagery wasn't quite wide enough. And honestly, I don't want it to be. It's so much funner if you've got pieces and torn edges to give your piece interest and texture and that one-of-a-kind look. So I end up gluing it down on the edge and leaving a little overhang because I want to wrap it around to the other side. And I've got a piece of wax paper here. I think in other parts of the world they might call it grease paper. And I'm just using that so that I don't get glue all over my table. But I want to just tell you as a tip, see how I have ink marks on it, colored ink marks? Make sure that ink is completely dry and non-reactive, because, oh, sorry about my Fraggle Rock hair here. I should brush my hair. Anyhow, um, if it's reactive ink, like if it's water-based and not permanent ink, for instance, like oxide ink, and you re-wet it later, it can come alive again, so to speak, and the color can start depositing again in places you don't intend it to. So what I'm doing is using parts of it that's dry and that I know I won't get color where I don't want color. So just a little tip just in case. You can use old book pages as a glue book, and when they start to get too sticky, just discard them. You can use, junk mail or like copy paper and just keep folding it and folding it to keep reusing it. But anyhow, I just keep grabbing scraps here so that my journaling card is interesting. I definitely want to be able to write on the back of this card. I do love to use my journals for actually journaling and writing. It's so important to me to have this tool for mental health and my growth and my ascension in life. So I definitely leave space for writing, but I love to leave it interesting, and I don't mind writing over print as long as it's not too dark or too busy. And I don't mind writing over maybe bumpy things, but that's just me. If any of this bothers you, keep these things in mind when you make your journal and your journaling cards, your ephemera, all your pieces. But I just don't mind that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm just kind of continuing to think about what I want to do. And there again, I could have cut that off, but I decide to wrap it around. You really need to add some extra glue if you're wrapping around pieces that are very short like that. They don't have much length, so they don't have much length to glue down. So really give it some good glue and hold it down. Make sure it's secure. And I decide I want the tops and bottoms straight, so I trim them with scissors and leave the sides rough and jagged. It's fun for me. I like texture and I'm a tactile person. And now I had a couple inks, colors that I'm going to use for this winter journal. And one of them is called Rusty Hinge. It's a Tim Holtz Distress Oxide ink. And the other one is the same, and the color is called Iced Spruce. And I might use a few other sort of maybe gathered twigs. That's another color. But here I give it a bunch of ink and a little bit of my own flavor and just make it my own with the ink and put it all over, but still make it legible so that I have a nice time when I go to write and it's not frustrating, because it's not about that at all. So I'm using the art glitter glue because it's very strong, and like I said, I wanted this little edge to be really secure because it's so short. And then I give it a little bone folding press. Make sure all that glue is seeped out and wiped away. And there it is. It looks so artsy with that torn inked edge. And the back does too. I love it. And it inspires me. It inspires me to want to write, and it makes me happy. And the happier I am, I feel, the better my journaling is. But at the same time, there's plenty of times when I'm feeling many other emotions and I journal, and it's very helpful. So I just took a little punch, and that one actually had a heart shape, but it doesn't matter. You won't notice it because I'm putting some ribbons through it. And these are actually something that was wrapped around some sheets that I bought for my bed. And it's got some marks in it, not marks, but like bends in it where it was tied up in the packaging. And later on it does something kind of funky that if it really bugged you, see right there, it has that little crook. If that bothers you, you should iron it because I can't get it to like flow and lay flowy, it wants to stay like that. And no worries, no big deal, but I just thought I'd mention it. So, anyways, it was reused packaging. And then I add a little bit of Hero Arts gold paste here just for some fun and some interest. And then I want to, on the front of the tag, give it a little dimension. And I love flowers. I'm a gardener, and I always seem to include flowers no matter what um, in my journals. And so here I had some paper flowers and some mulberry flowers, and I removed the centers on some of them. They were too dimensional, and I don't want my journal to get too bulky. And I had a little, have you ever bought a strand of beads and on the end and the beginning of the strand of beads is this little metal bead to keep it from falling off, in the store on the rack? I keep those, and that's what I'm gluing down in the center of this little paper flower right now. And I think it's awesome. I'm reusing it. It looks really pretty. It's metal. I love it. And here I'm taking some metallic embroidery floss, and I'm going to just make a little texture and glue it underneath the petals of the flowers just to give it a little dimensional texture. And I sort of twist it and tie it in a knot to make it easy to glue down. One time I didn't think of that, like when I first tried this, and I just tried to hold them together and glue it down, and it wasn't easy. It just kind of went all over, and it took forever. And so then the second time I did it, I thought to tie it in a knot. So that helps a lot. And then you're basically just gluing down the knot, and it's super easy. So I lift up the petals of the flowers and slip this in. It was an afterthought. You could have done it, put this down first and then your petals, but this worked out just fine, no worries. And glue that back down, that petal back down. And then I just sort of move the strands around with my fingers and, make them fluffy, kind of like fireworks. And now I'm looking for a scrap piece of lace that I have in my dish up here, some scraps, because I want to put that bulb pin on, but I want to give it some extra dimension and texture and an extra layer, if you will. So I put on one of those Tim Holtz crystals, but I also put on as a layer underneath it a little piece of scrap ribbon, and I love that about it. So I thread through the strings up at the top, and now I have a nice journaling tag. And it's going on the front cover. But I'm not nearly done with that front cover. Here I want to check and make sure it's going to fit, and yes, yep, it does. Here I was auditioning this journaling tag I made, but no, I thought about it for a second, and I do have footage on making it and will include it, but I don't end up using it. So I 86 it, and instead I make this. And here we go. We're going to make it together. I already did the front by myself, but we're going to do the rest of it now together. If anybody is watching this video that isn't new to this and you know how to collage, just, go buy this. I'm leaving it in case any beginners are out there and they're confused or they don't know what to do. I'm trying to leave in a lot of beginner things for people, just in case, because I know that when I began, it was hard. It was hard to find videos for me personally. Maybe others found it right away, and kudos to you. But it was hard for me to find videos where I found like full explanations on things. So I really appreciated it when I ended up finding videos that explained all the probably boring details for more seasoned players. But if you are seasoned and like my videos, please don't leave me. I love you. Um, I'm probably watching your videos. Um, but anyways, when I have time, I find now that I'm doing this, I'm new at YouTube, but that I barely have time to watch other videos now, which is kind of a bummer because of creating the content, which is a joy actually. But you know, I miss watching others, but there's a select few I definitely make time for. But anyhow, I leave things in because I was so grateful when I found it from others when I was learning, and it's so important to share that. So here it is. And so basically what I'm doing, just taking a bunch of the papers I intend on using throughout the journal and keeping all of the scraps and collaging. This is called collaging. And I'm going to glue it all down. And I kind of shared with you, you know, my thought process on where I was going to place it, why I placed it this way. For me, I like to place busy things next to maybe not so busy things, but I don't always have that luxury. Sometimes it just happens where that rule of thumb doesn't necessarily come into play, and that's okay. I sped this up here. I left it real time for about a minute, and the rest of it is times two, just because it's the same thing that I'm doing for the first real time 1 minute that just happened. So I thought I'd mention that. But anyway, I try to put busy papers next to non-busy papers. I feel that it's easier on the eye, and that's why I do that. Also, I wanted to mention that for at least for now, you know, people's tastes change as they evolve in life. But for a while, at least about a year or two, and who knows how long in the future, but I I enjoy mixing true antique and vintage papers, photographs, all types of things, ephemera, with um, some modern papers, like this one with the doves that speaks to me here, and the one with the white and the gold polka dots, and the one with the plaid here that I'm touching now. Sometimes on my channel, at least for now, while I'm feeling it, I'm going to include now and then papers like this because I feel that they blend well and they speak to me with antique and vintage papers. Some will be digitals, some will be authentic, antique and digital, antique and vintage papers. But I love the blend of some of the modern papers, like that one on the bottom left with the black and white vines. I love that the vine has a modern feel to it, and it's not in your face obvious that it's a vine. So anyhow, I hope that's okay, and I hope you like it. But yep, so I glue down a little bit with the papers to the inside of the envelope, and I don't sweat it if they're too short because I'm going to take that ink that we're working with here, and I'm going to lift up the flap and ink a little bit of the inside as well, so that if you see it, any of the white, it has ink. You don't have to do this. I don't really mind seeing the white, but it does give it more of a finished professional feel, so I include it for you. Sometimes I ink the edges of the papers, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I tear the scraps, sometimes I leave them cut. It's just a flow and a feel. I don't really have a whole lot of advice on that. It's really just kind of a flow and a feel as you go along. Actually, I can give you some advice. The best advice I can give you for that is don't overthink it as you're doing it. As soon as I used to be a different person not too long ago, like, I've been changing and evolving a lot within the last year, year and a half. So prior to that, I probably would have overthought some of this. And it's one of the worst mistakes you can have when you have flow, because flow will stop. So don't overthink things, just go with it, and just be okay with that. If it doesn't come out exactly how maybe you would have wanted it, it's okay. Don't get upset. Everything's fine. It's just learning. It's all junk mail and scraps. It's not that expensive, the paper. It's no big deal. And it's fun. And just be relaxed about it. Treat it as a learning experience, if anything, that you didn't quite like. And actually, there's probably a fix to it anyway. But even if there wasn't, or you don't see a fix to it, it's okay. It's a learning experience, and the next one you make, it's junk mail after all, will be that much better. So I put the ink on the inside there and around the edges because I think it looks pretty and sets off some of the papers. And I'm not fussy with it. I go around. A lot of people sort of do a different thing with their ink. I've noticed they 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 kind of rub it up and down on the edge of the paper and it makes like a flicking noise. Sometimes I do that, and other times I run it along. And I love running it along for two reasons. It creates flow for me, and what I mean by that is it's fun. It becomes just almost like it's not me doing it, and it's really amazing and a beautiful feeling that I get from it. And also, it's freedom. I don't stop and think about it like, ooh, I didn't want ink there. Oops, I didn't want to get ink there, or get frustrated that I got ink somewhere. So I find sliding it along the edges like that, it just A, creates that flow, and B, I love the organic marks that it makes instead of such careful marks. So it's all personal preference and where you're at. And by the way, everybody is where they should be, exactly where they should be. But anyway, just wanted to mention I love running it along the edges like that rather than sort of flicking it up and down. And that's why I do that, just in case anybody was noticing that. So here I'm trimming it around the junk mail to fit the envelope. And what I loved about this envelope is it had a super long flap instead of like the little half-inch flap with the glue, I look at this. I love this long flap, and it's rare. I don't see envelopes like this often. And I love it. I get excited when I get them. It just is different, and I love different. And I love, that one-of-a-kind feel. So just if you have a bone folder, it's really good to have. Press it down. It makes everything lay flatter because it breaks the fibers. And now I go all around, give it some ink. It's Rusty Hinge. That's the flavor, the color. And I love it. I love these tones. I feel like it's got some color to it, but it still has a winter feel to me. And here's the back. I end up doing that as well with scrap papers. And here I ended up putting something there that I didn't like. It was a modern dove of that paper there, of the black and white doves, and I fussy cut it out and colored it. But I didn't like how modern it was next to the image of the lady. So I took it off, and of course it tore my paper a little bit because it was already glued down. So I decided to grab one of these white flowers. It's like a paper mulberry flower. And what's cool about these flowers is you can leave them white, of course, but you can also color them with ink or paint or probably other things, dyes. And so anyways, I'm going to color mine with this ink. And this is the Victorian Velvet. And I'm leaving this in too, just so you can see. And I'm very lightly, this ink is a very juicy ink pad. So I'm very lightly touching the dauber to the flower, very lightly, almost like a ghost, touching, because you can't go backwards, but you can apply more. So just be careful and feel it out, see what you've got, and then you feel it out, you learn, and then you know your pressure to apply. So also, the center of this flower had a thick, round, plastic white bead, and it was two-dimensional for my project, so I removed it, and I'm going to put a rose gold brad right now through it, and that's how I'm going to fasten the flower onto the envelope. So I take this Tim Holtz poker tool that everyone seems to call a pokey tool, and I love it, the pokey tool. So I take the pokey tool and I poke a hole through to make room for this rose gold brad. And if you don't know what a brad is, it's just a little thing that you can see it in a second that has these two little metal, like paper thin metal arms that you fold down, like on the back of an envelope, like on a manila envelope. And you can fasten things with it. That's what a brad is. So, anyhow, I fasten it with the brad, and I like that the flower spins. You could just glue the flower down, no biggie, but I liked it this way. And here she is. My envelope is ready. And now for my intentions with the envelope. My intentions with this envelope is to fill it with words that will help me in my winter journal. And these will be words of intention for me, of intentions that I'm setting for myself, and personal growth. So now I'm taking scrap papers and some little stamps, alphabet stamps, wooden ones, and stamp words of intention that I'm going to stuff inside of this envelope, and then they'll be ready for me to use as I decorate my envelope. My journal. So, I want to go through things and not around them. I want to go through things. And just here's some other words that mean things to me that I'm going to be using in my winter journal. Because for me, winter is a time of dormancy. I am a gardener, like I was saying, and plants where I live in New England in the States go dormant in the winter, and they rest, and then they regrow. They have a period of regrowth. So for me, winter is a period of reflection and dormancy, and a time to self-reflect, and it's an opportunity, if you want to, for self-growth. And I want to. I always want to. And I'm taking this opportunity to do so. So these words are important to me for my personal self-growth in my personal journey and where I'm at right now in my life. And you can put any words that mean anything to you, anything at all. It could even be a Bible journal. It could be a journal, just for memory keeping. It could be a journal of about family. It could be anything at all, or just a daily diary of your life. And that's another beauty of a junk journal, is writing down just a little synopsis of your day each day. And I think it's so neat when you can look back at journals from, say, a few years ago or even more, and look at what you were doing. And these memories, probably a lot of them would be forgotten. So it's just a lovely, lovely way, I find, as I get older, to look back and see what I was doing. And it's really, really fun to see your growth, or just remember. So I stuff my envelope with my words, and I tuck it behind this book page here. And that was a book page that I glued on to use as a pocket. And here are some labels I printed out from the Graphics Fairy website. And I am a member here. I talk about this place a lot because I'm a member here, so I use it because I paid for it. And the same little alphabet stamps I had before. And I think I got those at like my local Joann Fabrics or something like that, those little stamps. And I'm using this same Victorian velvet ink on a little tiny finger dauber this time because I want more control, is the reason why I'm using this little dauber, because it's a smaller thing I'm working on. And you wouldn't have to, but I just am. So it's very juicy, like I said. I intend on stamping on this. So I want a very, very, very feathery light touch here with the ink. So just real gentle. And then I decide I want, after I rip it by hand here. And then I decide I do this a lot. I like to use 2 and even sometimes 3, 3 ink colors on a piece that I'm working on when I ink my edges. So I do add the rusty hinge as well, just in select areas. That's the key. Don't go all around, like say you use one color all around your edges. You can if you want to. You might get a really cool result if they blend well. But I personally don't go around the entire color, the second time. With a second color, I personally just go around here and there, and it pops it in my eyes at least. And here I'm stamping something that means so much to me, and it's actually a title of a song. And I write the author in the corner down below, and the song is it's really just the words, but I'm a new day rising, and that's really sort of my theme for my personal journey this winter. And it's, a little metaphorical, but not too much. It's pretty self-explanatory at the same time. So I glue it down. I just like to give it a little extra. And then put my tag in. And now I'm using some pigment ink here, some VersaFine. No, I think it's it's VersaFine pigment ink in black. And I leave this oops, I leave this in case you're new, because I didn't dry it, like let it dry overnight or dry it with a hair dryer, and I smudge it with my hand. But it's because it's on a book page that's glossy and it's not porous paper. So I'll talk more about that in a second. But here I'm taking a watercolor image I did. It's an acrylic, not a watercolor, sorry, of a tree, an evergreen tree, and a stormy sky, my version of one anyway. And I'm wanting to use the edge of it, part of the stormy sky. Oops, here's where I smudge it. Darn it. I'm like so mad right now. um, but I wasn't that mad actually. Actually, I wasn't. But so I just wanted to let you know you can wipe it off. If it's a glossy surface, and I did. I wiped it off. And then I restamped it, and I even made a boo-boo on the P, on the letter P. And I don't know, flow was on my side because I overstamped it again with the same letter P, and I was nervous, but it worked out. Here's the tree I was talking about that I ripped off part of the sky. Yeah, right there on that side is where I ripped it. I borrowed it for the other page, for this page here. And so, yeah, so I was able to restamp that P and it came out really well. It was darker, but it didn't overstamp, if you know what I mean. It stamped right on top. And I dried it. I was smart this time and I dried it with my dryer, my heat tool. And then here I use this lace to just adorn a little extra on the edges. You don't have to do things like this, but it makes me feel good, makes me happy. So I guess I'm just showing you, oops, this again here. But yeah, so that belongs back here. I think I might change my mind, but for now I'm putting it here and deciding on what to do with it for the next spread. But yeah, I love how this shutter, I stamped the word open. And again, that's metaphorical for me. And it's really just to be an open heart person and love one another and just be open. Just be open in life. And that's really all it means for me. And here I also printed her and fussy cut her out from the Graphics Fairy website. I do always like to mention they do have free images. I don't know what they are because I don't get those. I could if I wanted to, but I just print from the membership. But anyways, I cut her out on purpose with some white showing. And the reason why is I wanted to ink her up. And you wouldn't be able to see the ink if I cut right around the black of the image. So I left some white so I could ink her up with some pink velvet, Victorian velvet ink. And also I took an Ecoline water-based marker and I put a little pink blush chink on her, and I thought that was so cute and just made her my own just a little bit. And then I glued her in with a little scrap that I had, and she moves in and out. She does move in and out. And this is pretty much it. This is the end and how it came out. And thank you so much. Thank you everybody that's been subscribing. I appreciate it so, so much. Bye.